Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Discriminating Gamer. Say, did you hear the one about the historian who was depressed about his job? He realized there's no future in it. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 World War I games of all time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I get into it, I just want to talk about a few things. First of all, about a year or so ago, I did my top 10 World War II games of all time, and I got to be honest, some of the meanest and ugliest comments I have ever received in the, 7 years I've been doing the show, I received on that video. And frankly, it was from people who were upset that I didn't like the games that they liked. Now, by all means, I asked people to respond and to tell me what you liked, but there were some really unkind and nasty things. So I'd ask you, please, if you just have something unkind to say, keep it to yourself. Otherwise, let the rest of us just have fun and talk about the games we really like. Now, that being said, I should point out that this video is my top 10 favorite games, World War I games. These are not all war games. Many of them are games just with a World War I theme, and some of them, while they are war games, they may not be traditional hex and counter war games. So just please be aware of that as well. So if you don't think this video is for you, maybe now is a good time to sign off. But again, for the rest of us, let's just have fun and talk about some World War I games. Now, before I begin, there are a couple of games I want to mention, give honorable mentions to. The first one is Wings of Glory. Wings of Glory is a fun kind of miniatures game where you have little World War I planes and you lay down cards to kind of track their movement. It's kind of the inspiration, the great-great-granddaddy of miniatures games like Star Wars X-Wing and Star Trek Attack Wing. Really fun game. I always enjoyed that. I also really wanted to take a minute to say how much I enjoyed the Great War. The Great War from PSC Games, I believe, it's a Command and Colors game set in World War I. Really enjoyed that one a lot, just not quite enough to make the list. So let's go ahead and take a look now at my top 10 games of all time, World War I games of all time. So number 10, the first one is the First World War. I believe this was from Phalanx. And this is weird because it's like a Euro game that is wearing a war game disguise. It's a game where you actually have different tracks leading to from Germany to the Western powers, both in the West and France, but you've also got tracks leading to Russia and in the Balkans and Italy. There's these different tracks you're looking at. And essentially you are sending units out along those tracks, but there's also units you can bluff with. You can send out kind of phony armies to kind of scare them, but you're kind of moving back and forth along these tracks and attempting to conquer your objectives, and it is not easy, but it's really kind of a game, a lot of ways of bluff and double bluff. Where are your armies coming from? There's more to it than that, but still it feels very much like a war game that is secretly a Euro game. I think it's from the designer of Paths of Glory. I'm not 100% sure of that, but it's which I've not played, so you won't see Paths of Glory on this list. But the First World War is phenomenal. Really liked it. That is from, I believe, Phalanx Games did that, and so that is my number 10. My number 9 is a game that I really liked, and it would have been higher on the list except that it is so long, and after a while it does feel a bit like a slog, but it's still fun when you play it. And this is kind of, again, this is where some people are going to probably tune out. This is Axis and Allies, World War I, 1914. Now, this came out a few years ago, and it never really took off like a lot of the other Axis and Allies, and I think part of it is because this game is a slow game. It's a slow game to simulate the slog of World War I. In traditional Axis and Allies, you attack or defend, you usually go to the last man or someone retreats, but here you go in, you attack, they get to shoot back at you, and then you have a conflicted zone that can stay conflicted for a long time. Very good strategic choices, very good gameplay, and of course the minis are fun. But like I say, where it bogs down is they actually have I think 8 belligerents, and they each have their own turn to go. In Axis and Allies, originally you had 5, and that was kind of tough. But still, if you don't mind a longer game and a fun game, I think you'll get a kick out of Axis and Allies World War I, 1914. That's from Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Avalon Hill. My number 8 is a game from Victory Point Games that came out a few years ago, and this is not a war game, but rather it's a game that is set in the German aircraft manufacturing industry. This is Wings for the Baron from Victory Point Games. Now, in this game, essentially, you are these industrialists who are trying to build better games. So you're experimenting with technology, and you're trying to put out the better games. You're trying to win the contracts. But of course, you've got money that you're trying to. There's that tension. Do you invest the money, or do you try to make the profit? And it's a very well done game, and it's a very interesting game. First of all, the theme is not something you would really expect, this idea of kind of the industrialist building weapons of war. But they do a very good job with the history here of kind of implementing how the technology was kind of fast tracked with all the infusion of capital because of the war, and then how that kind of worked with the actual guys running the industry of the war. Very good theme and very fun gameplay. Some tight games I played with this, and I really enjoyed it. This is Wings from the Baron from Victory Point Games, and that is my number 8. My number 7 is a fun game. Again, this is not a war game. The Grizzled. The Grizzled's a great game. I actually played this down in Texas in grad school not too long ago. I guess about a year or two ago, and I forgot how much I liked this game. This is a fun game where you are each contributing cards. It's a cooperative game. You're like in a squad in France, and you're trying to get through all of the problems in that war, and you are playing these cards, but you can only play. You only got so many cards in your hand, and you have to keep playing cards. And the problem is, of course, if you get 3 of the specific symbols, and each card has a lot of different symbols on it. If you ever get 3 of the specific symbols, then boom, you're dead. You've all died. And you can't, this is all hidden information. You can't share, so you can't have an alpha gamer in this game, which is awesome. But 2, it's the pathos of this game. The designers were descendants of people who fought, and I believe died in World War I. So there's a lot of it's a sad game. It really is. It really evokes what it was. Well, I say it evokes what it was like. Nothing was what it was like. But you do have a great appreciation for what those men went through in the trenches in 1914 to 1918. So great game. Really appreciated the Grizzled. That is from, come on, that was my number 7. My number 6 is another game from Victory Point Games. This is Habsburg Eclipse. Now I know there was also Ottoman Sunset. I never played that one, but I really liked Habsburg Eclipse. Habsburg Eclipse is a solitary game where you are the Austrians and you've got tracks leading to Italy and to the Balkans and to Russia, and you're trying to fight off your enemies in all those locations. But at the same time, you are having to stifle kind of internal rebellions or unrest from like different ethnic groups, and so you're trying to do all these things. You've only got so many actions you can do every turn, but you've got all these fires you got to put out, and then sometimes you got event cards that are coming out. Sometimes you get lucky, you get help from the Germans who send you stuff, but it's really a fun game, and it's a great challenge. It's really a great solitaire game. When I made my top 10 solo videos of all time, this was on there. This was one of my top favorite solitaire games. So I definitely recommend you check this one out. So that is Habsburg Eclipse from Victory Point Games, and that is my number 6. My number 5 is a game I played fairly recently, just a few months ago for the first time, and it's a game that some people had recommended to me, and so I went ahead and I picked it up and I played it, and I really enjoyed it. This is Great War Commander, and it's based on the Combat Commander series, but essentially it's a game that takes place in World War I. It's a hex encounter game in World War I, where you are attempting to, of course, reach your objectives in different scenarios, and there's a ton of scenarios, there's a ton of paper maps. But again, this is a game that does not use dice. At least you don't roll dice. Rather, you've got those cards, and they got the fate deck, and the fate deck has die printed on it, and it tells you exactly what you roll. So instead of rolling die, you just draw a card that says what it is. But those cards also do other things. They provide you with actions you can take. Essentially the actions you take in the game. But then there's also like these other actions that you can take at different points in the game. When you're attacked or they're attacking, you do different things. But there's also events that can come up, and you can trigger events, and you can trigger a sniper, and then you got to find out where the sniper shoots. There is so much flavor in this game, in any of the Combat Commander games, and Great War Commander is no different. It's really a lot of fun. It's a great system. It's a fantastic system, and again, it's one I'd recommend that you play if that's something you think might appeal to you. That is Great War Commander. I think it's from Hexism. My number 4 is a game that, again, I've just played a couple of times, and I just played it for the first time probably not even a month ago, and I did my review here recently. This is Age of Dogfights. Age of Dogfights is phenomenal. Now, I mentioned Wings of Glory in my honorable mentions. Age of Dogfights kind of takes that idea, but I think it improves upon it significantly. Essentially, you've got this board that's got all these triangles, and you move the units along triangles. You roll die to find out how far you're moving. You add it to a speed you've already got, and then you're trying to line up your angles of attack. But you've also got altitudes, and you've got these stems, so you can, pivot yourself down or up, and then you adjust that stem the next turn to give you your altitude. And you can only fire at people at the same altitude or just below you or just above you. But there's, I think, 6 levels, so you go up and down, and oh my gosh, it's really fun. And you're rolling die to see what happens to the guy. Do they lose their, machine guns, or do they have trouble where they can't turn? You've got some gyroscopic things, so depending on where the engine would be in a particular plane, you're going to turn differently. There's all sorts of really fun and interesting things that you can do in this game, and I really, really had fun with Age of Dogfights. That's World War I. I know they've got the World War II on Kickstarter as I'm making this video, and that one looks like that one's going to be a lot of fun as well. So that is Age of Dogfights from Forsage Games, and that is my number 4. My number 3 is a game that until about a year or so ago I would have said is like hands down my favorite World War I game. I really, really enjoyed this one. Played it several years ago, and it's just a ball. It's a longer game, a little bit of a longer game, and it can be a little fiddly at times, but it's still a lot of fun. This is Fields of Despair from GMT Games. Fields of Despair is a game that kind of recreates the war on the Western Front. And you kind of have some abstractions to deal with the war in the East, and the submarine war, the U-boat war, but fundamentally the war in Belgium and northern France is really well done here. It's a block war game, and what is so cool about this game is, most block war games you got 4 steps: strength 4, strength 3, strength 2, strength 1, and that's also what you like die you can roll and stuff like that. But here what's really cool is the numbers are just massive. So like you've got some that have got like 20, 19, 18, 17. So you've got these massive numbers that you rotate on these blocks, and then you just kind of divide it and consult a matrix, and that tells you how many die you're going to roll. It's very well done, and you get a sense more than any other, I guess, strategic war game, or operational war game, I should say. You get a sense of just the massive numbers of people involved. I don't see that very often in war games like this. This one provides that truly kind of epic operational scale of that World War I fighting. Absolutely love this game. A lot of fun. You actually kind of trace the line. You got to put little markers showing exactly where the line's going as it's bulging. Units can be overrun. They can be out of supply. Very fun game. That is Fields of Despair from GMT Games, and that is my number 3. My number 2 is a game that is not a war game, and you could make the argument I'm kind of fudging including it in a World War I game, but I figure it's my list, World War I list. It's my list. I'll do what I want. And it's really about the end of World War I and the peace treaty. This is Versailles 1919 by GMT Games. This is a game that again, it's about the negotiation at the end of it, but each player takes on either the Americans, the British, the Italians, or the French, and they've got different objectives. And you've got these 3 different, you got this like coming at you 3 different kind of agendas that you're going to resolve, and then you can bring them down and try to resolve them. I think there's 2 where they can be resolved, but there's also events that come out, and you can try to manipulate those as well. But you actually have outbreaks of violence in the world, and you can actually send armies to do that. But then you risk your people not being happy that you're sending military units out again at the end of the war. So you're trying to contain the world from going to crap, but at the same time, if you've resolved agendas and then that part of the world has some kind of an uprising, that agenda is back out there, people can bid on it and take it from you. And those agendas, those issues, they are victory points, right? But they also give you other fun things, and there's other different things you're trying to resolve in this game. This is a brilliant game. I had so much fun from Versailles 1919. In fact, it's one of those games that, looking at it, I was thinking, I might enjoy it. It looks like there's a little too much there for me, maybe a little too complicated for me, but it's not. There's a bit of a learning curve, but once you get it, and it is a phenomenal game. Highly recommend this game if you're looking for a fun kind of negotiation game, but it's mean and it has some real strong historical flavor to it. I love Versailles 1919. It was my number 1 game of 2020. Loved it. And as far as World War I games go, it's, again, phenomenal. Not a war game, but a phenomenal game. And if you haven't played it, hopefully you'll get a chance to soon. It's a great game. So that is Versailles 1919 from GMT Games. That is my number 2. All right, so my number 1 World War I game of all time. Again, this is one I played, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago for the first time. I played it a few times now, and I like it because it's just a strategic level World War I game. And I like it because it is relatively simple. It's relatively simple to learn, relatively simple to play. It's not a real deep game. It only plays in about an hour and a half, so it's over pretty quick for a strategic level game. But it is so much fun, and you get a real historical flavor from the game, but you also have some great mechanics and some real strategy and some real tough choices. This is an attrition of souls from Compass Games. Like I say, I had played this, I'd heard about this game, and I thought, that sounds kind of interesting. And then when I played it, it just blew me away. Zach and I played it a few times, and every time we played it, we were just amazed. And incidentally, I've yet to lose. But it's just fun. I'd heard for a long time Compass Games had talked about, I heard from Compass Games the lamps are going out. And I played that fairly recently, and I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of overrated. I thought, it's got some fun stuff in it, but I was a little disappointed with the lamps are going out. But Attrition of Souls, man, it's a game that just grabbed me. I really had fun with this game. You've got the different spaces on the board where you move armies into, and then they become contested regions. But the way you do combat is just the attacker rolls combat, and then whatever they roll, you have to match the pips on the die to the pips on the units. And whatever units, either on your side or the other side, that match that score a hit, and that is very cool. But it's cool how as the calendar's moving forward, you're bringing in neutrals. You've got a bag pull system here, chip pull system, where depending on what you pull out, those are the units you're going to get for the turn. It's just tremendous fun, and I cannot recommend an Attrition of Souls enough. If you're looking for a great strategic level World War I game, it's fairly easy to learn and to play and to teach, and plays in under 2 hours. This is the one you want to grab. Phenomenal game. That is Attrition of Souls from Compass Games, my #1 World War I game. Well, thanks a lot for joining us once again. As always, I ask you to, of course, like the channel and subscribe. Check out my other channel, Cody Carlson PhD, where we talk about military history and fun topics like that. I'd appreciate it if you would check that channel out and give that a subscription as well. Subscribe to it as well. We'd also ask you to please just check us out and on Facebook and Twitter and all those fun places. And ladies and gentlemen, I really, like I say, I really like hearing back from your comments. What games on my list do you like? Did you not like? What are your games? What games would you include in your top 10 list? I am eager to hear that sort of thing. Like I say, I've just had some bad experiences with videos like this in the past with comments, but I really, you kind of ignore the haters and you reach out to people that you think really genuinely want to engage with you, and so that's why I'm still doing this sort of thing. Anyway, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you checking us out. And I got to tell you, during World War I, the Kaiser met with the Swiss ambassador, and he asked him how many troops Switzerland had. Switzerland said, we can raise 250,000 troops very quickly. And the Kaiser said, well, what if I invade with 500,000 troops? And the Swiss ambassador said, we shoot twice and go home. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
Eric, 14. Yes, I go from 7 to 14. Whoa, you doubled your productivity. I have much cooler planes now.